So it looks like we're back at war with Iran, or maybe more specifically, we're in a war over the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, in just the past few days, the United States has struck around 300 targets, and Iran has fired as many as 500 drones and missiles at U.S. and allied locations across the region. I mean, we had the memorandum of understanding. I don't think anybody was actually optimistic about the direction that was going. We covered it on this channel. Didn't look good at the time. Right now, we are seeing the fallout as effectively what's happening here is Iran says they control the strait. It is up to them where and when ships go through. The United States says no, and shooting ensues. So it's pretty clear that right now the sole focus in this conflict is control over the Strait of Hormuz. So these U.S. strikes did not pick back up because of the Iranian nuclear program. They didn't pick back up because of the Iranian ballistic missile program or support for their proxies. These new waves of strikes took place because Iran exerted their control over this key waterway. Now, looking at the strikes that played out last night, U.S. Central Command issued a statement saying, quote, "They've completed a new wave of offensive strikes against Iran, hitting dozens of targets at multiple locations with precision munitions to degrade Iran's ability to continue attacking international shipping flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM forces struck Iranian military air defense systems, coastal radar sites, missile and drone capabilities, and small boats using U.S. fighter aircraft, naval vessels, one-way attack drones, and one-way attack sea drones for the first time." Hopefully we get some footage or specifications on that. This has been an interesting one. They say the Strait of Hormuz is a vital maritime corridor for global trade. Iran does not control it. U.S. forces are postured and prepared to ensure that freedom of navigation remains available to commercial shipping despite Iran's continued unwarranted aggression, harassment, threats, and arbitrary declarations. Now, we're going to get into what led up to this wave of hostilities here in a moment, but looking at the Iranian side, because this was not a one-sided attack, the United States carried out strikes. Iran has responded each time. The IRGC said, quote, "The only way to open the Strait of Hormuz for vessels is to end the intervention of the U.S. military in this strait and to respect the sovereignty of countries over their own coastal waters." That is the theme. That is where Iran has dug in. That's where they stand. Now, overnight, Iran says that they carried out a number of launches against targets in Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain. A couple notable claims from Iran. And I want to stress that we have seen some footage and some pictures of things burning. Very clearly, some missiles hit something, whether those were intercepted and caused fires on the ground or actually struck their targets has not yet been verified from what I can tell. But according to the IRGC, they said they hit two U.S.-linked bases, or two U.S. bases in Kuwait. They said they also hit two air bases in Jordan, one, the Prince Hassan Air Base, saying they hit fuel tanks and ammunition depots, and at the Al Araz Air Base, said they hit American fighter jet hangars. Then in Qatar, they say they went after the El Adid Air Base with a 44 missile barrage, with multiple of those missiles getting through. And in Oman, they said they hit multiple radar systems that were monitoring the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE, for their part, says that at least 500 Iranian missiles and drones have been launched over the course of the past couple days in this most recent wave. Again, to stress, we do not have a verified battle damage assessment, and as of today, U.S. satellite imagery providers are still withholding data over those locations in the Middle East. Now, Iran has also claimed that in addition to these strikes, that they were able to inflict a number of U.S. casualties. U.S. Central Command addressed this, saying that there are zero reports of U.S. service members' deaths or injuries in the region. All personnel are now accounted for. Now, diving into why this series of escalations has played out in recent days, the spokesperson for the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs pointed to Clause 5 of the agreement in the Memorandum of Understanding, where he says it is not open to interpretation, and the Americans should not make decisions based on their own interpretation. Now, I'll have the full text of the Memorandum of Understanding linked in the description below, and I'll put up some of it, or I'll put up Clause 5 here on the screen if you want to see what that says. A couple aspects here. It says, quote, "Upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days, only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman, and vice versa." So, in fact, let's pull up a quick map to show you the area we're talking about here, this critical waterway that is the Strait of Hormuz. So we've got live UA map, Iran here on to the north, the top part of the screen. You've got the Persian Gulf here, this body of water, Sea of Oman out to the east. Strait of Hormuz, this contested waterway, very congested and contested waterway here. So this is the area that Iran says that they have territorial control over, they have sovereign control over. The United States is contesting that, but when we look at the Memorandum of Understanding, one of the critiques that we brought up on this channel as well is it kind of kicked this down the road. It said, well, Iran start removing mines, if you would, sometime in the next 30 days. And over the course of the next 60 days, we'll get to it. But if you look at the actual text, and I'll put it back up on the screen here, you can see how, whether you agree with their stance or not, and I do not agree that Iran should exert sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz. I think this is an international waterway that needs to be governed as such. But when you look at the text, you can see how Iran would view that as it is up to them. It is their right to control what goes through and when. Again, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, quote, "Instead of allowing Iran to reopen the strait based on the agreement, the Americans have been cheating from the beginning, trying to circumvent the agreed-upon path with Iran through incitement and with the cooperation of regional countries. By doing this, the United States has violated the agreement, jeopardized maritime security, and exacerbated tensions and conflict in the region." Now, again, the key issue here, going back to the map, is that what's happened in recent days is there has been an uptick in traffic. And this is so frustrating and confusing, probably deliberately so. Is the Strait of Hormuz open or is it closed? And the answer is kind of somewhere in the middle. And just in the last 30 days, we've seen the United States, I think last night, the U.S. Central Command announced it is absolutely open. Kind of, maybe. Iran has said that it's closed. It's also not entirely closed. The truth is somewhere in between. It has been for some time. But the issue here is that Iran wants to control all the shipping moving through the northern portion, especially here through Bandar Abbas. And we've seen some satellite imagery recently showing that the bulk of traffic is moving through that area. That is where they can more easily exert control and exact tolls from ships moving through. What we've seen in recent days is more ships trying to move through the south. Many of those were then fired upon by Iran, trying to get them to push further north into their territorial waters. That's the source of contention here. And Iran has been and continues to fire on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. That's a problem. That has to be resolved. And again, that seems like the focus of what this war is all about right now. Now, shifting to U.S. Central Command's assessment of how this is all playing out, they're pushing back on the claims that Iran, I think 2 days ago, said the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. And again, I want to stress, we did not begin the war for this. This was not the core objective. And objectives changed throughout the war, no doubt, but it's notable how much of a backseat things like the Iranian nuclear program, their missile development, which it looks like they were probably digging up some missiles. I don't think that their production facilities are anywhere back to where they could be a viable source of munitions in the near future. But the missile program's not being addressed, the nuclear program not being addressed, the proxy forces not being addressed. Instead, the sole focus is the Strait of Hormuz. All right, so we kind of quickly and quietly gotten there. But U.S. Central Command put out a statement yesterday saying the Strait of Hormuz is open for transit. Quote, "Pathways for free transit through the Strait of Hormuz remain open. Iran does not control the international waterway used by commercial vessels to globally transport goods and energy. U.S. forces have facilitated the transit of 800 ships and 400 million barrels of crude over the past 2 months, adding that 140 ships have transited the strait in the past 7 days. However, that has fallen off a cliff a bit. Reuters just reported that 6 vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz on Sunday, the lowest number in 5 weeks. And we're talking about, going back 5 weeks, that's when the strait was effectively completely closed. So that's the situation we're in right now. Now, in terms of what to watch for going forward, it kind of all hinges on a change here in the United States. Are we going to change our strategy or are we going to change our goals in this conflict? Iran has made their position pretty clear, and I don't think there's really anyone that genuinely believes that a few more strikes, a couple more days of attacks is going to significantly change their calculation or change what we're able to accomplish here. It kind of boils down to, does the United States, do we increase pressure to try to accomplish our objectives, or do we reduce our expectations? Because we're stuck in this middle ground right now of we don't want to go all out. We don't want to say put boots on the ground. We don't want to surge additional assets into the region and carry out continuous bombardment for day after day after day, weeks and months on end. We don't want to do that. But we also want to achieve all of our objectives with their nuclear program, their missile program, their support for proxies, and opening the Strait of Hormuz with no limitations. We are in the middle of those two right now, and it's not working. So we've either got this status quo, which from what I can see is trending towards Iran at the very least having a degree of control over the Strait of Hormuz. Again, note that yesterday ships were down to 6 passing through the strait because of the Iranian attacks. So we can yell and scream that the strait is open all we want. But when Iran can take a few actions and shut down shipping right there, that is Iranian control. It's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for our partners in the region. It's not good for the world, but that's the situation we're in. So if we expect something to change here outside of just, negotiations are on their way and we have disagreements and maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't, we have to change the pressure. That's it. We have kind of worked ourselves into a bind here. There's no clear solution in sight so long as we continue to carry out kind of the same operations and the same level of pressure and coercion against the Iranian regime that we've been using now for a number of months, and it hasn't gotten us there. So that's what we're watching for here in the coming days, but that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.